She stood there in the quiet office,
the city lights glowing behind the glass, and asked him a question that stopped his heart mid-beat. Her voice was calm, almost curious, but her eyes searched his face. "Why would I want them," she said softly, "when I already have you?" In that moment, everything he thought he understood about his place in her life cracked wide open. If stories about unexpected kindness, quiet sacrifices, and human connection move you, take a second to subscribe to Kindness Tales, like this video if it touches you, and share your thoughts in the comments. These stories feel even warmer when we experience them together. He never imagined his life would look like this. Each morning began before sunrise in a small rented house on the edge of a quiet suburban neighborhood. The coffee maker rattled on the counter while he packed lunches, checked homework, and reminded his daughter to grab her jacket, even when she insisted she wouldn't need it. Being a single dad wasn't something he planned for, but it was the role he poured himself into with everything he had. His world revolved around school drop-offs, grocery lists, bedtime stories, and the constant low hum of responsibility that never really turned off. After dropping his daughter at elementary school, he drove straight into the city, merging into traffic with thousands of other people chasing deadlines and paychecks. He worked as a personal assistant for a successful executive woman who ran a fast-growing company. She was sharp, driven, and respected. The kind of person who walked into a room and changed its temperature. To most people, she was intimidating. To him, she was simply his boss. He scheduled her meetings, managed her calendar, organized her travel, and made sure her life ran smoothly enough for her to focus on building her business. From the start, their working relationship was easy in a way he hadn't expected. She trusted him quickly, something she didn't do often. He noticed how she appreciated small things, like how he remembered her favorite takeout order after a long day, or how he quietly rescheduled meetings when she looked exhausted. She noticed how reliable he was, how he never complained even when tasks piled up, how he talked about his daughter with a mixture of pride and gentle worry that felt deeply human. Over time, their conversations drifted beyond work. They talked about favorite movies during late nights at the office, about childhood memories, about how loneliness could still find you even when you were surrounded by people. He never crossed a line. He knew his place. She was his boss, successful, wealthy, and seemingly from a different world. He was a single dad, just trying to keep everything together. She, on the other hand, had a problem that came up more often than she liked. Friends, family, and even business acquaintances constantly tried to set her up with men they thought were suitable. Successful men, well-dressed men, men with impressive titles and impressive homes. She complained about it one evening while they reviewed emails. She said she was tired of bad dates and worse conversations. Tired of men who saw her success as either a threat or a trophy. He listened as he always did, offering thoughtful nods and the occasional gentle comment. Then one day, half joking and half serious, she asked if he knew any decent men. The question caught him off guard. He laughed it off at first, but she pressed him, saying he seemed like someone who understood people well. That's how it started. He began suggesting men he knew through other parents at school, old friends, even co-workers from previous jobs. He framed it like a project, something he could help with. He carefully chose men he thought were kind, stable, respectful, men he believed would appreciate her for who she was. Each time she went on a date, she'd report back the next day. Sometimes she laughed about awkward moments. Sometimes she shrugged and said there just wasn't a spark. What he didn't admit to himself was the tight feeling in his chest each time she talked about those dates. He told himself it was nothing, just protectiveness, just concern. She was his boss and he wanted her to be happy. That was all. At night, after putting his daughter to bed, he sat alone on the couch, the house quiet, and wondered why her happiness felt so personal. Acts of kindness slipped into their routine almost unnoticed. When his daughter got sick and he had to leave work early, she told him to take the next day off too, paid, no questions asked. When she found out he'd been skipping lunch to save money, she started ordering extra food and insisting he eat with her during long days. When her company landed a major deal, he stayed late to help prepare. and she thanked him not with bonuses or praise, but with genuine gratitude that made him feel seen. Still, he kept pushing men toward her, even as something inside him resisted. He convinced himself that this was what support looked like. He wasn't an option anyway. His life was complicated. His priorities were clear. Romance was a luxury he didn't have time to think about. One evening, after a particularly long week, they stayed late finishing a presentation. The office was nearly empty, lights dimmed, the city humming outside. She leaned back in her chair and sighed, saying she was done with dating. She said she was tired of feeling misunderstood. He smiled politely and told her maybe the right person just hadn't shown up yet. She looked at him then, really looked at him, in a way that made him shift uncomfortably. She asked why he always seemed to put everyone else first, why he never talked about what he wanted. He brushed it off, saying his daughter came first, and that was enough. The next week, she mentioned another date, someone he had suggested. She described the evening, the expensive restaurant, the polite conversation, the lack of connection. Then she fell quiet. He felt the familiar mix of relief and guilt. He didn't know why he felt relieved at all. Days later came the moment he would replay in his mind over and over. They were in her office, paperwork spread across the desk. She said she'd been thinking about something. She asked him why he kept trying so hard to find her someone else. He laughed nervously and said he thought she wanted help. That's when she stood, walked to the window and turned back toward him. Her voice was calm, but there was something raw underneath it. "Why would I want them?" she asked, "when I already have you?" Time seemed to slow. His first instinct was to panic. He reminded her he was her employee, a single dad, not someone who fit into her world. He listed all the reasons it wouldn't make sense. She listened without interrupting, then said quietly that none of those reasons mattered to her. She said she admired his kindness, his devotion, the way he showed up every day without needing recognition. She said she trusted him more than anyone else in her life. He didn't answer right away. He went home that night and watched his daughter sleep, her chest rising and falling, and felt the weight of every choice he'd ever made. He thought about stability, about risk, about whether he was allowed to want something for himself. What followed wasn't a dramatic leap, but a careful, compassionate unfolding. They talked a lot about boundaries, about fears, about how to protect his daughter's heart as much as their own. She met his daughter slowly, respectfully, bringing books and listening more than she spoke. She showed up at school events quietly, sitting in the back, clapping the loudest. At work, nothing changed outwardly at first. He was still professional, still reliable. But there was a warmth now, a shared understanding that softened the edges of long days. She never treated him like something she owned or rescued. She treated him like an equal, someone whose kindness had value beyond any job title. Over time, he realized something that surprised him. He hadn't been choosing men for her because he thought she needed help. He'd been doing it because he didn't believe he deserved to be chosen. Her questions shattered that belief, not through grand gestures, but through quiet sincerity. The kindness in their story wasn't just romantic. It was in the way she respected his role as a father, in the way he continued to support her dreams without losing himself, in the way they both learned that love doesn't always arrive loudly. Sometimes it grows in shared lunches, late-night conversations, and the courage to see what's been right in front of you all along. Years later, when people ask how they found each other, they smile and say, it wasn't through dating apps or chance meetings. It was through showing up, through listening, through kindness that asked for nothing in return. The kind of kindness that quietly changes lives. Their story reminds us that connection doesn't always look the way we expect. Sometimes the person who sees us most clearly is already there, helping us carry our days. Kindness has a way of circling back when we least expect it, offering us not just comfort but possibility. If this story touched you, share it with someone who needs a reminder that they matter. And if you've experienced a moment where kindness changed your path, tell us about it in the comments. You never know who might be waiting to feel a little less alone.